Chapter 3 of Facilitating and Leading Teams. This is about exploring the group process, how to get the most out of getting together. Too many organizations have significantly digressed from being concerned about, let alone trying to improve, the process that groups go through as they attempt to work together. Most groups simply gather in the meeting room, listen to what the leader and a few others have to say, and go back to their regular jobs. When people take such a neglectful attitude towards the group process, they miss out on the true reason for using a group of people to make decisions, solve problems, or generate ideas. The power of synergy and diverse perspectives. I believe that the group process is more important than the content of the meeting itself. With today's technology, it's relatively easy to have people read the information that is often shared in meetings and provide their feedback in a digital fashion. We use such a virtual consensus process every year as part of the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award applicant review process. It's proven itself to be both a time saver and an effective engagement tool. Virtual consensus, however, has its drawbacks. Only a portion of a given message can be effectively conveyed through the written world alone, and it's often difficult for many people to clearly express themselves in writing. Conversely, if the group process is not managed well, it's a waste of time to meet in a face-to-face manner. In fact, face-to-face meetings can do more damage than good in terms of relationship quality if individual opinions and ideas are discounted, or if a few people are allowed to dominate the meeting. The intent of this workbook section is to provide information to help you more effectively manage the group process. Simply reading this workbook section, however, won't immediately address all of your group process challenges, but you will find that attempting to practice and follow the guidelines suggested here will be beneficial. The group process can be quite powerful in terms of building relationships, improving decision quality, and generating ideas, but only if it's managed in an effective manner. Stages of team development. I was fortunate. I was taught the Tuckman model of group development many years ago. Since that point in time, I've had the opportunity to watch many groups go through this four-phase cycle. You've probably even heard it before: forming, storming, norming, and performing. Understanding that groups naturally progress through these four stages has helped me better relate this group process to team effectiveness. In other words, this cycle has helped me realize how team effectiveness cannot be mandated or expected right off the bat. Team members need some time to storm and norm after forming. You can accelerate this process through the use of facilitation and sound group dynamic skills, but some time is required from a group development perspective before a team can be expected to consistently perform. Plus, you should recognize that this model is not one-directional. If your team's membership or charter changes, it's quite possible that a team which was at the norming level will regress back to the storming level until the new members are assimilated into the group, or until norms related to the new charter are established. In some cases, personal issues can even cause an intact team to regress. Human behavior is the driver of the group process, and in turn, dominant personalities can easily take groups backwards in the cycle. From a positive perspective, the forming, storming, norming, and performing cycle is a reinforcing loop. In other words, it can build momentum in either the positive or the negative direction. Your goal should be to move it in the positive direction. If you as a team leader or facilitator can achieve success in doing so, your team's performance will accelerate over time. If you fail to manage this process, however, the erosion in team performance can also be rapid. One key to managing the group process involves openly discussing where the group feels they are from a performance perspective. Which of the four stages are we at? Each team member needs to be both cognizant of where they feel the group is at and willing to share that opinion with the group. As team leader, don't hesitate to share this model with your team. Ask them where they feel the team is at. Ask them for their ideas about what needs to be done to move the team towards higher levels of performance. But expect it. Expect to form. Expect to storm. Expect to norm and expect to perform. Managing team dynamics. Effective team climates are established by making process content distinctions, being able to recognize and resolve team problems, setting ground rules and establishing norms, and matching team member roles with abilities. Compare 1, a group of people sitting in a room for an hour, not talking and doing their own work, with 2, a group of people who are interacting with each other, attempting to solve a problem or reach a common goal. As you visualize these 2 scenarios, ask yourself, what types of actions would a leader take in each case? Also, consider what the leader would need to observe during the hour. When a group of people occupy the same space but do not interact, there's no group dynamics taking place. There's no verbal exchange of information. As soon as visual, auditory, or even kinesthetic communication begins taking place, however, between 2 or more of these people, group dynamics begin to emerge. So no one has to say anything, but they can start moving around, shuffling in their chair, making sure people can see their exaggerated body movements. If the leader's not prepared to manage these dynamics, the team's effectiveness will be compromised. Systems thinking, an open mind, and respect for the intangible are all required to properly manage the dynamics of a group. Groups go through stages as they spend more and more time together. We just covered those: forming, storming, norming, and performing. The leader needs to be able to monitor changes in the team's climate over time, just as much as he or she watches it during a given meeting. Group dynamics change like the weather, and they're also similar to it in other ways. Group dynamics have patterns that are somewhat predictable, but these patterns cannot always be anticipated. They vary from meeting to meeting, as team membership fluctuates, as projects change, or as simply as team member moods and emotions shift. Norms, cohesion, and team performance. The key to managing group dynamics is to first of all be aware of them, second of all talk about them openly with the team, and 3, set ground rules for team operation. Most leaders do a better job of focusing on the content of the meeting, the words being said, the agenda items that are being addressed. Fewer leaders are able to observe the flow from agenda point to agenda point, how well the team is staying on track, and the types of nonverbal communication that are taking place. If you're new to team leadership, you may want to enlist the support of a facilitator to help you monitor and learn more about the dynamics of your group. The traditional role of a facilitator in this application is to simply sit in your meetings and observe what is going on. They don't take over the leader's role for you. After the meeting, the leader is given feedback by the facilitator about what was observed, both in terms of process and content. You're given advice about where questions could have been used to help shift the group process, maybe to head off a potential defensive routine, or to engage quiet group members. You can also learn more about group dynamics by watching other groups. Ask to sit in on team meetings that may be taking place in your organization. Take notes, or even diagram the dynamics of the group as the meeting time goes by. Where does the emotion go high? Where does the emotion go low? Where does the energy go high? Where does the energy go low? Notice how well the group sticks to the agenda, how often they go off on tangents, where emotions begin to surface, and which people, if any, tend to dominate the conversation. Most importantly, notice how the leader handles these situations. Think about how effective the team is in relation to others you've seen in your organization. Group event process versus content. Content is the agenda being covered, the task being performed. The process is how we get there. So the process content model used to be one of the first things that was taught to all team members, not just leaders. As part of group dynamics training, we want people to be aware of what's going on in the meeting, both in terms of the content being shared, but also the process for sharing information, making sure people are exchanging information. In the best team-based organization that I worked at, all employees were taught about this model as part of a one-day group dynamics training session. And in reflection, it's a tremendous strategy to do that. Teach everybody how groups work. We felt it was important to introduce this model to all employees because in one way or another, they were all going to be involved in some type of team meeting, even if it was just the monthly all-hands meeting. By introducing them to the model, we're increasing the likelihood that each person would do their part to both manage the group process and contribute as time went on. Our tendency is to focus only or primarily on the content that the group exists to address. This human tendency is largely due to the fact that content is tangible. We can see the agenda. If we can't see the agenda, we can hear the words being said. The process side of groups is largely emotional, and it can be only observed if the team is willing to talk about how the group works together. Most people find such types of dialogue to be very uncomfortable at first. Unfortunately, the process side of group performance exists whether you want it to or not, and it will affect team performance even if you choose to ignore it. So let's talk about managing it. Let's teach the entire group the basic skills necessary to help us manage our group dynamics as a group. Actions can be taken to manage the group process outside of discussing group tendencies. Selecting team members that have similar interests, for example, will help minimize the potential for negative impacts of the group process and heighten the potential positive effects. However, we don't want everyone to agree all the time. Selecting team leaders that are skilled at managing the group process can produce similar results, and that's actually the better strategy. Select people that are willing to be team leaders, teach them to be good team leaders, give them the skills both on the facilitation side and on the content delivery side, and then coach them and help them improve. The most important thing to remember here is that the group process will affect team performance whether you recognize that it's doing so or not. It's happening all the time. In turn, your best strategy is to manage and take advantage of the group process. You do this by increasing team awareness of its existence. Team awareness of its existence. You should also conduct regular process checks with all team members as the meeting's going on to gauge both the positive and negative attributes of the behavior side of team effectiveness. And the more you do process checks, you get to where you don't have to do them anymore because everybody just becomes in tune with managing the process. It's really cool to see that happen.